Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 38. Today we have a very special guest. We have the CEO and founder of Trash Panda Disc Golf, Jesse Stedman. We're going to talk to Jesse all about their brand new disc, their first disc, the inner core made out of 100% recycled plastic. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, we welcome on our guest for the show this week. Today we have a very special guest. We have the CEO and founder of Trash Panda Disc Golf, Jesse Stedman. Thank you so much for joining the show, Jesse.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah. I think I definitely wanted to get you on the show to kind of time in with the release of your first, publicly released 100% recycled disc. Super big for the disc golf market. A really cool product that I've already been able to test. But before we jump before we jump into all of that, I just want to start, from the beginning for people that aren't familiar with you and your company. But we're going to go back even further than that to start and just, talk us through your first exposure to disc golf, because I feel like that's kind of the start of everybody's journey, and how you found the sport to begin with.
Yeah, so I was a freshman in high school in 2007, 2008, and my some of my close friends, their older brothers, kind of got into the sport,
Okay.
and really didn't like we all got pretty attached to it and pretty stoked on it, but didn't think much of it. Like I didn't see there was no at the time people weren't looking towards like a career in disc golf or a future in disc golf and stuff. So I really didn't think much of it. I never asked myself what's that little nub on the bottom of the disc? I just kind of was a disc golfer and played for 10 or 12 years just for fun, just out by myself, casual rounds. I got my PDGA number 12 years into playing. So
Nice.
Not even a sanctioned tournament or anything. I'm not the most competitive guy. So yeah, I just kind of found the sport and fell in love with it in a very casual sense.
Yeah.
And to this day, I think that's my most excited place to be, is that casual disc golf. If I can get out with the homies, I'm the most excited to do that.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think when people get into disc golf, there's depending on your personality, there's those two avenues. Everybody kind of gets, hooked in quick that gets into disc golf. It has those addictive qualities to it.
Absolutely.
But then some people are immediately, I want to play in tournaments. I want to see how good I am. And then some people are yeah, I just want to go out and have a good time and play disc golf and enjoy the sport.
Yeah.
I feel like me, from the beginning, I was super hooked into the competitive stuff. But these days it's kind of I just want to enjoy myself and play disc golf for fun and
sure.
get that enjoyment.
I want to try that shot without caring about the result. I want to try to throw that angle without knowing that it's going to affect my rating.
Right.
And I'm very lackluster when it comes to field work or putting practice.
Same.
So I'm not trying to be a professional disc golfer. I'm not trying to tote myself as a player. I'm more just your everyday homie who just loves to play. That's the best part of the sport for me. So.
Yeah, so that kind of, that's kind of the start of the disc golf side of things. Got into the sport quite a while ago, kind of had a casual following with it. But aside from disc golf, obviously the other half of your company is, sustainability, doing things that are environmentally friendly. Where does your passion for that kind of side of things, come from originally, aside from disc golf? Was that something that did come from disc golf, or something that originated elsewhere and then you tied it in later?
That's such a great question, and I actually don't think I've been asked that to this day. And
Okay.
The truth is, I don't know. There was never a moment or a thing that prompted me to focus on that. And I feel like a lot of us who have had experience with that street corner preacher who's talking about sustainability, they had this intense moment and then they need to force it down people's throat. And I never had that. I loved being outside. I loved playing disc golf. We were playing in gorgeous places. I grew up in Auburn, California, so shout out to the NorCal crew, but also really close to Tahoe and playing Tahoe courses. And it's just unbelievable. De La is a drive, just a short drive away. So being able to be in those spaces, I was I'd love to be outside playing the sport and seeing the plastic. I just kind of thought to myself, why isn't there more recycled plastic in the sport? And that was kind of it. It was I really think disc golf kind of was a slow, it snuck up on me, and sustainability also snuck up on me. It was never this moment happened and then from that day forward, it was just yeah, I care about the planet. So if I care about the planet, then I'll probably try to do this, or probably try to do this. Or, I mean, all of us have been on the course and been talking to someone And it may have been you. I'll say it was me who said like, "Oh, I wish this trash wasn't on the course." And
Yeah.
then I immediately stepped over it and kept walking.
Mm.
Like that was me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to act like it wasn't. So nowadays it's just like, I guess slowly it was just that like be the change you want to see, and realizing like I had to change first, and then like maybe other people would be stoked on that mission too. So
Yeah, that's cool for sure. So, obviously, eventually the love for disc golf and that kind of the idea of being that change and using recycled plastic and the sustainability, those eventually combine into what we know now as Trash Panda Disc Golf. Where did the name Trash Panda come from? I guess that's the third part of the equation.
yeah, I think these are all great questions because they're like they're not the obvious ones, but they're kind of cutting deep there. There's a few places, and it really boils down to the truth of the matter. So I'll say something after this, but if anyone wants to cut through the bullshit, the truth of the matter is that my wife liked the name Trash Panda, and that
Okay.
was it. So like
Okay.
my wife was like, if you don't name it that, I'm gonna leave you, and hoping she wasn't serious, but not knowing we are Trash Panda. The other part of the equation, though, jokes aside, was that my background before Trash Panda was in marketing, and
Okay.
so coming into the space, it was like, okay, what's a name? You know, going through that marketing brain of what's a name that stands out. People don't think of disc golf as like a super well, after 2020, it's a little different, but people don't think of it as like a super brand heavy sport. And
Right.
so, you know, you've got Innova, you've got Discraft, you've got Prodigy, but people don't think about how every single name of every disc is another brand. And so, what's a name that I could name my company that another company isn't going to go name a disc that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a big piece of the equation. And so yeah, Trash Panda was kind of that. And then the other thing was if we're recycling people's trash, if you're going to be able to find us in a dumpster, Trash Panda just kind of makes perfect sense. So that was
Yeah.
another big piece.
I like it. I think it's a good fit for the company, and I think the logo is super cool. And like, I also think Trash Panda is just such a cool name for a raccoon. Anyways, like,
Yeah.
I think it works out good. I think so far it's basically your company and a minor league baseball team. Those are like the results you
Yeah.
get for Trash
Oh,
Panda.
I remember looking at YouTube and being like, okay, who's Trash Panda on there? What do I got to beat? And it was like a band had 1,000 subscribers. So there was a band called Trash Panda that had 1,000 subscribers. So I was like,
Okay.
if I can get past that, we're good.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was surprisingly quick, not kind of what I expected. But just the other day, I like Googled, I was with someone, and um, I knew their computer would not have like anything targeted towards disc golf
Right.
specific. So rather than going incognito, I was just curious with their open profile, what would it say? And so I Googled Trash Panda, and it was literally like minor league baseball team, Wikipedia, Trash Panda disc golf, which I is mind blowing to me. So
Yeah.
I'm super grateful for that.
I was gonna say one thing. I have like me and some of my coworkers have like this habit of sometimes we'll Google something disc golf related and forget to put disc golf on the end of the search because we just like are stuck in our little disc golf world.
Yeah.
Like we'll be looking for like Prodigy disc and we'll just search Prodigy or something
Yeah.
like that.
Oh,
But
I've done it too.
today or yesterday rather, I was doing some research for this interview and I just searched Trash Panda and I was like, and I hit enter and I was like, I forgot to put disc golf. But your website was the first one on top of
Really?
the page. So I was like, hey, like that usually
There we
doesn't
go.
happen. So
There we go.
it's definitely worked with the originality and everything.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. We'll take it.
Yeah. So one thing I want to know, when you started the company, because I think you've had a kind of a number of avenues. You've had some success on YouTube. You've kind of now pivoted. Well, not really pivoted. You still are doing the YouTube, but then now you have the disc manufacturing going on. But when you started the company, what was your initial vision, and has that vision evolved or pivoted at all as time has gone on?
I mean, yeah, that's a great question. Of course, it's evolved in many ways, but that through line, that like main thread has remained the same.
Okay.
The very first video was I'm setting out to make a fully recycled disc. So
Yeah.
like now we are at the stage this week of the realization of a vision that was 2.5 years in the making. But like today, it feels like the beginning, not the end of the journey, right? Like we're
Yeah.
not at the destination. This is where we start still. So yeah, I mean, like I said, my background was marketing, so it was a pretty hefty learning curve. So
Hmm.
really, I knew there was going to be a big learning curve. I knew it was going to take some time. Thought it would be way less for sure, but I knew it
Yeah.
would take some time. Like I genuinely thought I'd have one out within 6 months.
Oh wow.
Um, and that just shows how like naive I was to it. But the through line of it all, yeah, I mean, I just really like I like to say before I was a content creator, I was a content consumer.
Hmm.
And so I was for years, I realized like for years I was watching this one person and I was so bought into their story. And I mean, for people listening to this, like think of the relationship you have with Trevor Staub, with Foundation. Like, of course, people have that with you guys because of the way you create content. And so for me, I was like, okay, if it's going to take me a second and I feel bought into these brands, why not do it on YouTube and just bring people into the story? And it
Yeah.
just so happened to be right at the beginning of COVID where all the pros popped off tour and popped onto YouTube. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, disc golf was like very YouTube heavy. I mean, I know you've been playing for a while. Like, YouTube was not always the thing for disc golf. Like
No.
2008, when I started playing, there was nothing.
Hmm.
And I mean, YouTube was just coming up anyway, but like it really it's a new world of YouTube and disc golf as of 2020 and forward. So we just kind of caught that wave at that perfect moment, and I'm super grateful for that. So yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Like disc golf YouTube, obviously the landscape has changed a ton. When I got into YouTube, it was like this. When I got into disc golf, it was around 2013, and it was like in the bags and some coverage that was like homemade coverage basically,
yeah,
and there was no like original content for entertainment purposes that was being made. It was all just kind of like scraps, and like I'd seen all of it a
yeah,
hundred times
yeah,
over. But it's definitely has
100%.
changed a lot. But it's cool. Yeah, it's cool to see like all the companies that were able to catch that wave in 2020 and certainly benefit from it. So
For sure.
at the beginning of that wave, obviously, like you had mentioned, you know that video that came out of you making the disc, the one that kind of put you on the map, essentially. I thought it was like, I mean, I remember clicking on it when it first got big because I remember thinking like, oh my goodness, is somebody really making a disc? Because like the process of creating a disc has been shrouded in mystery for a lot of people for a long time. Like I was actually able to, I had the opportunity just this year to see a disc being made in a factory for the first time ever.
Yeah,
But most people have no idea. Like you can get little bits and pieces on YouTube, but it's very shrouded in mystery. So when I saw your video, I was immediately like, oh, this is fascinating. Like somebody's making a disc. Like, first of all, I just want to see how that's even being done. And second of
for
all, like
sure.
somebody's trying to do it homemade. That's another
In the
layer to it.
garage. Yeah.
And I just remember like watching it and seeing like how much tinkering had to go into it and watching the framing in your garage like bending as you're trying to like inject
The
the plastic.
studs.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know, like, talk a little bit about the difficulties and the triumphs of creating that first injection molding machine from scratch because it looked like a journey.
Oh my gosh, it was such a journey. It can be boiled down to this. The first disc we ever made is categorically the worst feeling disc I've ever felt in my life.
Okay.
Take whatever you think feels bad, whether it's, something with a weird shape like a turbo putt or something that's super hard or whatever, and just like amplify that, multiply it by 10. It is horrible feeling. And that felt amazing to me to have done it. It wasn't
Yeah.
the feeling of the disc, it was just to have done it.
Right.
So I feel like, yeah, that was a wild video. And to be clear, we there's a little more on YouTube now, and one of my goals is to really pull back the curtain for people to show them
Yeah.
how it's done and to show them what's happening. But there was nothing before then except for like one quick gateway like video where you could see like flashing being trimmed and a
Mm.
Vibram video, which Vibram made their discs in a different way than everybody else with compression molding, so it wasn't
Yeah.
helpful. And then right before I posted that video, shout out to Jonathan at Latitude 64. I give him a hard time for it all the time. He posted a how it's made video.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn you. I was going to post that video. And like, I
Yeah.
think I posted mine like 2 weeks later or something. But I love that you can see literally if you look up how a disc is made on YouTube, you can see like the most broken down Flintstones version, the wrong way to do it, which is how I was doing it. And then the amazing Latitude 64 factory way to do it, which is just beautiful. And that's kind of what we're working towards now. But yeah, it was definitely like a triumph, but also like, wow, we got a long way to go. We got
Yeah.
a lot of work ahead of us. So yeah, that one
Yeah.
was wild.
It's definitely, I mean, it's definitely a daunting task. I mean, I think just the fact that you were able to create a disc in general, like I can imagine how that was a triumph because it is so difficult and it's such a precise thing to be able to create
Yeah.
when you're dealing with the molds and injection molding is just, it's a very difficult process
Oh yeah.
because just the amount of issues that the $500,000 machines that are just massive that the big manufacturers are using. They have if they're having issues, you can imagine what it was like trying to
Oh,
make one in your garage.
I mean,
So
the most minor thing is like temperature controlled environment versus like a garage in December in Denver.
yeah,
Like the temperature was
all over the
different on
place.
every single injection. So yeah, it was wild, but it's also like I will never forget those days or forget those moments because that was my education too. Those were the moments
Hmm.
that I like that video in particular, someone said, like, or I said in the video, hey, if you have an idea for how I can make this easier on myself or how I can make this better, just let me know.
Yeah,
To this day, 2 years later, we get comments that say, just make the lever arm longer. Just make the
hmm,
lever arm longer. You'll have more torque. And I'm literally over here reading those comments and Googling what is torque. I had
yeah,
no idea like how certain things worked. And so it was my education. It was that like trial by fire, but I'm so grateful for it because it got me to today. And I can't imagine I would have gotten here without knowing that. So,
yeah.
or without having done it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you're obviously, eventually you start being able to create a product. You start refining things. Your YouTube is growing, but as you're kind of moving along, you're still kind of a homegrown platform. It's still very small scale production. You've got your YouTube channel, but at what point did you decide that hey, we're going to take this recycled disc to the industrial scale for mass production? Like we want to make this, we want to invest in
Yeah.
this and make this a big business.
Well, so it was the dream was always to get there,
Okay.
but the reality was those first few months on YouTube, my goal was to get 100 subscribers a month, like
Yeah.
super slow growth, and we hit 10K in 1 year, which just tells you like how off I was in my projections of like the growth on YouTube, largely in part because of that video. But it was the goal was always to get there, but the realization of it was when I realized how hard it was going to be to make a disc and how much more I needed to learn.
Hmm.
I we came up with the idea of making minis for the
Yeah.
purpose of minis are not performance based, and I could learn more as I made minis and build some sustainability into the business in terms of just fiscal sustainability.
Right.
Um, and when we made minis, like we didn't even announce it was happening. And within 3 hours of that video going up, we'd sold 1,000 and had to close orders
Oh
because they
wow.
were they were made to order, which meant
Oh,
over the
okay.
next month, I like literally just made those. And that's all I did for a month. And then we switched to an inventory based model, made 500, that sold out in 3 minutes. The next run sold out in 43 minutes. And all of a sudden I was like, if we can't keep up with mini production in the garage, there's
Hmm.
no world in which we can keep up with discs. So
Right.
that it kind of came quicker than I thought, but it was always the goal to get to industrial scale.
Okay.
But like you said, $500,000 machines and all the equipment and everything like that, it just was like there was so much to be done to get to that scale. And our demand had grown to the point where it was so far through the roof that we couldn't
Right.
keep up with that I knew it wasn't going to be us doing all the work, but it would be us partnering with someone locally to do all the work. And so we found a manufacturing partner here locally who has been a dream to work with. Part of the initial agreement was that I would be able to come and just be there and work with them on the machines to learn as we went and stuff like that. And even in troubleshooting discs and stuff, I mean, I was there with them till 9 p.m. multiple nights, till like they were working around the clock and stuff like that to get this stuff done. But it hasn't been like a hand someone a check to make them some discs. It's been we are into like very intimately involved together in making this thing possible because it's hard enough to make discs. It is virtually impossible to make them out of recycled plastic. And so
Yeah.
that's I've always said like, we're kind of proving why everyone else doesn't do it, but now I'm learning like firsthand like, oh yeah, this is tough. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I was gonna say whenever I was able to visit a disc factory, the first thing I quickly realized was that making discs is not really like the difficulty is all about the plastic knowledge. Like disc golf companies are plastic companies first and foremost.
oh
Like
yeah,
there is so much knowledge regarding plastic blends, how you can mix certain ones, how certain ones react to things. Like it was blowing my mind hearing about it. Like it's
yeah.
a whole different language. What was that process like trying to find them in the first place? Was that something that was super easy? They just happened to be right there and be the best fit, or did you have to look in a bunch of places?
Yeah, so finding a local manufacturer was kind of just about Denver's not a big manufacturing hub. It's not like Detroit where there's a million injection molders. So it was
Yeah.
really kind of just like um, reaching out to a couple, finding someone who was interested in kind of partnering with us, and someone who saw the potential of the relationship. And yeah, it was just kind of, I mean, it just really worked out well the first time around. So
That's awesome.
I don't take it lightly or for granted the fact that like we have an incredible partnership with our manufacturing partner. We also have an incredible relationship with a local recycler who's one of the biggest plastic recyclers in like a 10-state region. We get our all of our shipping materials are made in a town called Louisville, Colorado, which is between Denver and Boulder. So it's like
Okay.
right here,
That's so cool.
just like 10 miles away. It's ridiculous. Everything is here. And so
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that because that's not something I had in my control. Like that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
something that is happenstance, but like the stars aligned.
Yeah, that is awesome that you've been able to have like kind of a hub there where everything is super close because that honestly makes things so much easier, especially when you're collaborating with your manufacturer to like be in person and see the process. One of the things that so you mentioned um, that it's very like hard or almost impossible to make a disc out of recycled plastic. To the best of your knowledge of plastic, what is it that makes it so difficult to use the recycled plastic?
Yeah, it's a really easy answer, actually. It's being that it's recycled, contamination is all over the place.
Okay.
So you could get a source of plastic of 5 gaylords of one type of plastic, and a gaylord's a big box for people who don't know of a
Yeah.
bunch of plastic. And if for like each one could have a different issue within it or
Mm.
something like that. When you get virgin polymers, when you get virgin plastic, it is designed to be pristine, to be clean, to be perfect,
Yeah.
so that you could run the same part consistently and never have to change things. It's
Mm.
just, and that doesn't always happen because it's so like the science is so specific. So there's variation in the world of virgin plastic. When you get to recycled plastic, you just basically amplify that variation. And all of a sudden you're dealing with different problems every single day.
That makes
So
sense.
yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It's pretty easy because it's just like, you know, maybe they ground a certain type of plastic through the grinder
Hmm.
and a little bit of that stayed when they cleaned the grinder up and that made its way into this batch or something like that. And it's just incompatible plastics or it's something else entirely or I mean, I could go on. It'll get
I'm
really
sure. Yeah.
complicated. Yeah.
I can definitely understand how exhausting the process must have been to finally kind of get to the result. But you were obviously able to create a great product. You know, you came out with the inner core just the other day. 100% recycled. So you had hundreds of prototypes leading up to your final mold. What allowed you to finally believe that you had the finished product, you had what you wanted? And did you ever think at some point during the process that you would never actually be able to achieve the result that you were looking for?
Um, that's a great question. Uh, it it's been really hard, and I'm I'm very open with the audience on our YouTube channel. Transparency is a huge part of our brand. And I want to share that story because I believe sustainability is for everyone and it's something we all have to do our part in, even if it's, I mean, just one step.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think everyone has to do everything. But it's been so hard and I haven't made a video yet about that,
Okay.
about the moments where I thought about quitting or about the moments where I thought, I always knew it was possible. To your question, I always knew it was possible. I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if
Okay.
we could. And I haven't made a video about those moments. So, yes, we were successful in making our officially making this product. And a lot of it boils down to just having, I had confidence in just having learned what I've been able to learn in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But getting here was, um, there was a moment where I was like telling someone like we're in that like we're where you hit that 20 miles and you're
Yeah.
like 20 is pretty sick, but I got 6 more to go in a
Right.
marathon. And then like 1 week later, I'm like, this is an ultra marathon. This was not a marathon from the beginning, and it has just been so hard. So I don't mean to complain about that. This is I never asked the audience for money to do this. We didn't do a Kickstarter for that reason. I took the risk on myself because this is a selfish dream. This is a selfish goal. I wanted to see recycled discs in the sport. Let's do it. And so I don't in any way want to come off as complaining about that. This is what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But it's been yeah, it's been a wild ride. So but yeah, I mean, if you have felt the disc, you have thrown it. If other people feel it or throw it, they will see like this is a disc.
Yeah.
This is not like,
Absolutely.
oh, this is trash, or oh, this is made from recycled plastic. You might not even know if you felt it and you threw it.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of what we ultimately came to, and that comes from 12 years of playing. I threw discs for 12 years. I knew what a disc needed to feel like. So those
Right.
first prototypes, I knew those weren't right. I knew those were in the direction, but those were never the thing. So yeah, it's been a lot.
I can definitely see it written all over you, and I'm sure everybody will be looking for a video that you come out with in the future, kind of like going over the whole process.
Yeah.
But the result has been pretty insane. You know, you posted on social media about the commercial success of your drop, thousands of orders pouring in the first few days. Did you expect it to be this big, or was this reception a bit of a shock to you?
Uh,
And you're allowed to say yes. You may have
no, it's
expected it to be big.
yeah, it's a complicated question in that like we should go back to minis and other things we've done, and I'll say
Yeah.
I didn't expect it to be a bit big. We have a partnership with Flight Towel that always sells out. I did not expect that. We have a partnership with Atlas that has sold out twice within
Yeah.
a matter of less than 2 hours. Like I
Hmm.
did not expect that. I did not expect minis to do what they've done. But now that we've seen those things, it was like we had our projections and we are right on pace with what our projections were for this drop.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, I mean it was crazy. We as if making a disc wasn't enough and everything like that. We also migrated our entire website from Shopify to or from Squarespace to Shopify,
Oh, wow.
and Shopify has this incredible back end where you can actually see they have like a map and you
Yep.
can see the orders flowing in. You can see where people are on the website. So like that morning at like 9 a.m., website's not even going to be live till noon. We have hundreds of people just chilling on the website waiting. We can see where they're at. We can see orders flowing in. We released it to Patreon a couple hours early. And I mean, it just was like in that moment, it was just like, all right, we're doing it. This is what we thought would happen. So
Yeah.
today, not surprised, but like I'm only not surprised because the audience has continued and our community has continued to surprise me at this point. That it's
Yeah.
like, okay, how long can you be surprised before you say, whatever we say the number is going to be, they're going to double it and then do some
Right.
more. So
That's so cool. Yeah. It is awesome. Like sitting in that drop on the back end, being able to see all of that come to
oh, for
fruition. It
sure,
is such
you
a cool
absolutely
moment.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the Shopify map is cool for
yeah,
sure. But yeah, that is so cool, and I'm certainly happy for the company and the success that you've been able to have. That's
thanks.
really awesome. You've been able to build up that base of customers that are on board with your movement and supporting. So I want to talk a little bit
Yeah,
about the inner core. You know, we obviously got ours in the mail just yesterday. I was able to toss it a few times. Slightly understable, kind of neutral putter. Really nice flight to it. I can understand why you went with the neutral flying disc to begin with. Obviously, that's a pretty popular play. Kind of suits everybody's arm speeds. But what made you decide? This might go back to the original
yeah.
disc that you made. But what made you decide to go with a putter first?
Yeah, so I just reminisced about this we released a documentary with the disc release, and I think I mentioned it in there at one point, but I don't remember that moment where I
Yeah,
decided putter,
just kind of
but
happened.
it was just like, but when I look back in my head from day one, it was I'm making a recycled disc and it's gonna be a putter. So it just always was, and I don't remember exactly why that happened. I mean, I probably thought to myself like, people buy stacks of putters, so maybe we can sell more or something. But
Yeah.
that was when we also had two subscribers, and it was me and my wife. So I don't remember exactly what that moment was, but then over time, it's interesting that you said that about neutral flying putters because honestly, from day one, I was like, I don't know how to design a disc. I don't understand aerodynamics. So
Yeah.
I'll make a disc and it will either be marketed as overstable, neutral, or understable. And
It happens.
it will just fly how it flies.
Yeah.
So for a while, that was kind of the how we were going to go about it. I mean, genuinely, that was
Makes
my
sense to
thought
me. Yeah.
process. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was like, and then I'll learn how to design it the other way.
Yeah.
But then over time, we started to, the audience grew and the community grew. So it started to become, okay, what kind of actual, like, what disc are we going to make for our
Mm.
community? And when it comes to a neutral flying putter, so I'd already decided putter somehow, somewhere, I don't remember. But when it comes to neutral, I wanted to design something that was for everyone. I
Yeah.
love how our friends at Jomez have on their Instagram bio, everyone from 18 down to 18 over.
Mm.
Like that to me is, I wanted to do something like that because of, not because of sales or anything like that. That's like a cherry on top. It was because sustainability, I fundamentally believe, is for everyone. Like
Yeah.
all of us can pick up one piece of trash the next time we're playing disc golf. And so I wanted to design something that would be for everyone. And it actually comes all the way down to the weight of the disc.
Mm.
Most all of them are between 166, 167, and 170 grams. And for some people, including myself in early days, that was a really lightweight disc, and I would never buy something below 170. And for some people, 166 is even getting on the heavy side of what they throw. And the reality of how you do different weights in the manufacturing process is through virgin additives.
Mm.
And ultimately, we're not adding anything to our plastic at this time because we want it to be 100% recycled.
Yeah.
So the plastic we're receiving is being made into a disc without anything being added to it. And so the weight as well came down to like, okay, if you're a strong arm thrower, which I am, like, I'm not saying I, in a good way, like I am because of off axis torque, but like I am a strong arm thrower. I can throw farther than most people. This disc is teaching me finesse.
Mm.
If you can't throw a 2-4, we call it 2-4 negative 0.50, and it's once, let's say it's 168.
Yeah.
If you can't throw that disc smooth, that tells you your form is off.
Very
So
true.
something's wrong there. So if you're advanced, this is your teacher, this is your coach. And if you're a beginner, you don't want to throw a zone out of the
For
bag. Like
sure.
that's going to be tough. And so something that was lighter weight again, but also neutral flying would be something that a beginner could toss. And it it's funny because like when you've thrown thousands of discs, you kind of just know. So
Mm.
the first time I threw it, I just knew we nailed it.
Mm.
But um, like when I saw beginners, when I saw heavy arm throwers when I saw smooth throwers who have finesse, when I saw everyone throw it, that's when I realized like we really did nail it.
Yeah.
And that's also by happenstance. I don't want to act like I know all there is to know about aerodynamics or disc design. We designed something that we thought would work. It turned out to work perfectly, but that doesn't mean I can just go design a mid that flies straight or go design a mid that's overstable or whatever. So we still got a lot to learn.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. You know, one of the cool things about disc golf is if you go to the neutral or understable side of things, you create a disc that's going to be useful, especially with a putter because it's a slower disc. You're making a disc that you know is going to be useful for a lot of different skill levels. And I totally agree. You know, if the inner core has a flight to where, like, if you have good form, you should be able to throw it and get a really nice flight out of it. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's super cool. So
Thanks, man.
you mentioned creating a mid range. One of my questions was is it your goal to have a complete lineup in the future? And if so, have you kind of picked out? Do you want to do the mid next?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I spoiled this somewhere else, so I don't think this is an exclusive. But if people
Okay.
haven't listened to that podcast, then this will be the exclusive for them. Um, we Yeah, well, actually, I don't think I've said this yet. I would like to have a line of 12 discs,
Okay.
understable, neutral, and overstable in every category.
I like that.
To be honest, thinking of a beginner, I'm thinking of someone buying a starter set from this company and then going to their website and seeing 100 different discs and just being like,
It's very
paralyzed.
overwhelming. Yeah.
What do you do? What do you
Yeah.
buy? Oh, I like the name of that disc. So I'm going to buy that disc. And oh, wait,
It's
it's a
tie-dye
14
too.
speed
Yeah.
03. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just, so I wanted to simplify things down. I'm not trying to have a line of everything. That might change. I'm not sure. But right now, understable, neutral, and overstable in every category would make me super happy.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do is mid range and fairway next, and jump as quickly as possible to sustainable starter sets.
Oh, that would be
So,
so cool.
growing the sport sustainably is a big part of what we do. Uh, most of us know that like whatever we got as a starter set is not in our bag anymore,
Yeah.
and it's probably in the trash or it's in a lake because that what became our water disc pretty quickly, or it just got beat up and eaten by our dog. And
Yeah.
so for me, um, sustainable starter sets, something that's not created to be just a gateway drug and then move on, something
Hmm.
that's created to stay and to be useful for someone. Like, think of a beginner who doesn't know how to throw a disc, but then could become super advanced and still throw that disc. That for
Yeah.
me is what kind of the dream was. So yeah, I guess I don't know exactly what the line, how quickly mid to fairway will be, but sustainable starter sets is what we're working towards right now.
That's cool.
Um, yeah,
I think that's an awesome goal. I think that would be a really nice product and like just be the ultimate pack to have as a sustainable set. Like that would be a
yeah.
very cool product for sure.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
So one of the last things I wanted to know is the name Intercore. I kind of drew the conclusion that had to do with the part of the Earth. Am I correct in assuming that?
Yeah.
Okay, so with that being said, is that kind of like, do you want to stick with that theme going forward? And are you going to be like specifically like, I want to do parts of the earth, like I'm going to have the mantle, the crust, or are you just going to kind of go broad, like ecosystem, the environment kind of names?
Yeah, I mean, we could get into the weeds on this, so I'll try to be pretty targeted with what I say.
Okay.
You're correct in where it is, and at the end of the documentary we just released, which I'm like completely biased, but I'm super proud of it, just like our discs. So go watch that if you have time.
Yeah.
It's at the very end of it, I explain the name, and the name comes down to the fact that the center of the earth is really what the entire earth is built up upon. And
Mm.
so that foundation, it felt like we couldn't start anywhere else. I'm not saying foundation lightly, by the way. I understand that. It felt like we couldn't start anywhere else. It felt like that was the place to begin because this is our beginning. But then it also, I wanted to dedicate the name of this disc to our community, the people who have gotten us here. And inner core felt like that. It felt like the name of just saying you are our inner core. That's why we did it. And so it's really like, yes, it has to do with our naming convention, and I'll spoil that quickly. But also it came down to like dedicating it to our audience too. As to the naming convention, I was relatively inspired by my friends at Loft Discs. If you look at the periodic table, you can actually figure out based on names how the disc will fly. And
Oh,
I
that's
thought that
cool.
was absolutely fantastic. And so we are starting at the center of the earth. We made a graphic about the inner core, so I'll just let people go find that and decide for themselves or try to decipher it. But basically, starting at the center of the earth and moving out will also be like that 2 speed is probably the lowest we'll go, which is why
Okay.
it's the inner core. And then moving out will be as the speeds go up.
That's
So
cool.
how far we go, whether we get to the surface, whether we make it to outer space, you can decipher by way of our graphic that we made for the inner core.
All
But
right.
also, I don't think we'll go. I personally don't think we'll go as specific as mantle, crust, you name it.
Yeah.
But we might. Who knows? I, the people can send us their suggestions if they want to.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I like a good cohesive naming system. I think some disc golf companies have really like figured it out, and I think that obviously, with your company image, like it totally made sense to go with something that represents the earth.
It had to be.
So
That was the other piece. We couldn't go anywhere else. It had to
Right.
be.
So I think that worked out great because I think it'll create you have a lot of options for some cool names and like to make it really cohesive. I think some companies at this point are just like all over the place with their disc names. And like, I mean, it leaves them to where, yes, they do have, a lot of options, but also there's not really a lot of cohesiveness. Like there are certain companies where you name a disc from them and like, oh, I know whose that is because
Yeah.
it sounds
Yeah.
on brand,
Even if I haven't heard it before, I can guess that's West
Exactly.
Side, right? Yeah,
Yes. So
for
I
sure.
think I think that's a good business model moving forward, and I look forward to seeing what the next names will be.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks, man.
yeah, but that's all I've got today. Thank you so much for joining the show. It was really cool hearing about the company. I think you found a really cool niche in disc golf and have an awesome movement going forward. And wish you the best of luck with the company as things
Thanks,
go
man.
on.
Yeah, I'm honestly, all I can say is I'm just honored. Like to be to be doing what I love, I talked about how hard it is, so I can't not end here with just like to be doing what I love and bringing something that I wanted to the world. Like I'm so honored to be doing that. So, yeah, and I'm honored for the people who are joining us with it. It just, I mean, it means genuinely the world to me that like someone would even want us on their podcast. Like that still blows my mind. I still have to sit back and pinch myself. So, Trevor, thanks for having us, man. It means a lot.
Of course. All right, and thanks once again to Jesse for joining the show today. Really cool hearing about that company vision and their humble beginnings and where they're headed. If you want to check out Trash Panda Disc Golf, and especially if you haven't, make sure to check out their YouTube channel. You can also go to their website, check out their brand new disc, the Inner Core, and give that a shot. Other than that, we'll be back next Thursday with another special guest, and we'll see you then.